For 3.5 years, I suffered with poor health characterized by fatigue, continued breathlessness, and exhaustion. Over these years, I developed digestion problems, including chronic burping, bloating, gas, and new food intolerances. I saw at least 17 doctors, I did countless tests, and I took 22 different medicines and supplements, but nothing took it away. I didn't have to work in this time, and I had insurance with no excess and no limit. I say this because I'd like to illustrate that I had the time and the resources to investigate it, and it still took 3.5 years. So it can only be harder for other people who are looking for answers. I'm making this video as it would appear that everything is resolved, and I wanted to share my findings. The following is my current understanding of what occurred, and I'd like to make it clear that I'm not a doctor nor a medical practitioner. If you're stressed, your body will go into fight or flight. When you're sending your body's resources to fight or flight, you're not sending your resources to focus on digestion. As a result of stress, you excrete less stomach acid. Less stomach acid leads the food in your stomach to ferment, producing more gas. In our bodies, we have a balance of microbes, bacteria, and fungus in our gut. There are billions upon billions of good bacteria, some bad bacteria, and fungus like yeast, which is also known as Candida. Stomach acid plays a vital role in breaking down food before it passes to your small intestine. Low levels of acid in the stomach leads to poorly digested food passing through to the intestine. This poorly digested food feeds the bacteria, leading to an overgrowth known as dysbiosis. In addition to feeding the bacteria and fungus, how much acid we release in the stomach dictates the pH level of the food received by the lower gut. The pH level in the lower gut tells your gallbladder how much bile to release. Bile is an antibacterial and antifungal, and it acts as a lubrication for the lower gut. Releasing less bile can further contribute to the growth of bacteria and fungus. Overgrowth in bacteria and fungus produces bloating and gas. The excess bacteria and fungus can lead to a buildup on the wall of the small intestines, making it harder for nutrients to pass through into your bloodstream. The reduced sites in the small intestinal wall that do allow food to come through can get damaged. This leads to larger particles getting through, particles that shouldn't be in your bloodstream. This is called leaky gut, and it's still debated by scientists. I'll explain this a bit later. If your gut allows larger particles into your bloodstream, your body may see these particles as foreign invaders and ramp up its defense mechanism. This leads to inflammations and allergic responses to what were previously non-allergic foods. For me, it was dairy, gluten, and most carbs. The bloating and inflammation in the abdomen can push against your diaphragm, limiting your lung capacity and leaving you feeling short of breath. Little to no exercise, like driving, showering, and walking, can leave you gasping for air as you struggle to take deep enough breaths to pull your diaphragm lower. It's hard to know how much of the breathlessness could be caused by reduced lung capacity and how much could be caused by a lack of energy due to malabsorption. The longest I was hyperventilating like this for was 9 straight days. In this period, I was so weak that my muscles ached to walk, and I had a constant headache from breathing this way. My mental cognition was so poor that I struggled to watch TV because I couldn't follow the dialogue, and often it was too hard for me to fall asleep because I was too tired from the exhaustion of breathing itself. If I didn't breathe like this, it felt like I was holding my breath and the headaches got worse. I knew that this was something to do with my digestion, but 6 of the gastroenterologists and the doctors that I spoke to suggested I try antidepressants, most probably because they believed that the breathlessness was panic attacks. But who has panic attacks caused by mild exercise or eating? And why would it last 9 days at a stretch? One of my last gastroenterologists suggested that we test for SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and that we test with a hydrogen breath test. The test did show that I had a bacterial overgrowth. After more than 2 years of telling multiple gastroenterologists that I had a digestion issue, I had my first gut-related diagnosis. If 3 of the 4 gastroenterologists suggested antidepressants before even suggesting that we test for the thing that I actually had, then you get an understanding for how new all of this is in the world of gastroenterology. I mention this to explain why curing SIBO alone didn't fully help. After curing SIBO, the exact symptoms come back. If you take a course of antibiotics, you wipe out all of the bacteria in the gut and you leave the food for fungus, which is not affected by the antibiotics. There's a good chance that if you have SIBO and you stamp it out, pretty soon you're going to have a fungal overgrowth. If doctors are not looking for a microbial overgrowth, then they're not going to be looking for a fungal overgrowth that can develop once you've cleared the SIBO. Hence another year for me to learn why I'd relapsed. If any of this sounds like you, just bear in mind that a couple of weeks after taking antibiotics, you're going to want to start antifungals as well. So, after clearing up the SIBO and the SIFO, I was feeling better, right? No. After this point, the gut is still inflamed. I may have had leaky gut. I was still intolerant to dairy, gluten, carbs, and sugar, i.e., all of the same symptoms, just less bloating. I imagine that leaky gut is a theory because gastroenterologists are not highly aware of SIBO, which is a verifiable ailment. Gastroenterologists that are aware of bacterial overgrowth may not be highly aware that SIBO can be a precursor condition to fungal overgrowths, which again is also a verifiable ailment. Leaky gut, which may be the cause of inflammation and allergies, is not on the radar because it's theoretical, it's unproven, and as I've shown, it's several steps further down the line than traditional gastroenterologists' diagnostics. So after seeing over 17 doctors, a gastroenterologist said that the only other thing to do would be a colonoscopy and an endoscopy. He warned me that it's quite extreme and that he didn't recommend it, so I should only do this as a last resort. I knew that fasting was a good way of starving bacteria, fungus, and parasites. Many people that had tried it also reported other health benefits. Throughout these years, I'd always felt my best prior to eating, so the idea of cutting out food seemed rational. I fasted for 4 days in 2019, stopping on Christmas Day. There was no benefit in these days, and I suffered chronic burping and had acid reflux. Although the fasting was a failure, I did learn how to do it better. I learned that I get headaches from cutting out caffeine, headaches from cutting out sugar and carbs, and headaches from going into ketosis. When I planned to water fast again, I wanted to stick at it. I wanted to do it for 2 weeks, but at least 7 days. In 2008, prior to moving to Dubai, I was 59 kilos. This year, prior to fasting, I was 64 kilos, so I knew I had at least 5 kilos of spare fat. If you go into ketosis, you are primarily burning fat. 1 kilo of fat contains 7,700 calories. I need 1,800 calories a day to maintain my weight. So I guess that with 5 kilos of spare fat, I could go at least 21 days. This is what I did over 4 weeks. Week 1, I cut out coffee, allowing me to get over the caffeine withdrawals. Week 2, I cut out all carbs, including fruit, vegetables, and sugar. So I just ate eggs, chicken, fish, meat, and lots of coconut oil for extra calories. At some point in the later part of this week, my body would have switched into ketosis. I started to get very thirsty, even waking up in the night to drink and pee. I was drinking about 6 litres of water a day at this stage. Week 3, I quit all food and just had water. I knew that people get muscle cramps caused by a lack of electrolytes, so I had sugar-free electrolytes. Week 3, 4 days into the first week of the fast, I started to have bone broth 3 times a day. Fasting got easier and easier as time went on. Although you're not hungry, you are so bored. I probably could have gone a month without food, but I broke the fast after 12 days. People will tell you that the first thing you eat tastes incredibly sweet and that you get crazy energy boosts. But nope, not for me. I didn't get anything like that. It hit my stomach like lead. I didn't get a rush at all. However, my symptoms were about 90% or more better and have continued to improve since then. Today, I'm 6 weeks after coming off the fast. Almost all symptoms have gone away. The burping, By far the easiest metric for me to count is way down. Before I started the fast, I clicker counted how many times a day I burped, and it was over 300 times a day. When I stopped the fast, for sure I still burped more than others, but not much for me. To put it into perspective, a year ago I had a cheeseburger that put me in bed for 3 days. I know now that it was because the red meat that I had would have fermented in my stomach, the sugars from the bun would have fed the SIBO, and I was lactose intolerant at the time. Now I can eat cheese. I can eat cheese. And I can eat bread, and I can walk, and I can exercise if I wanted to, and I can drive without losing my breath. Now I intend to fast for about a week, 3 to 4 times a year. The only thing I'll do differently is that I'll cut down the whole period to just 2 weeks. In week 1, I'll go on to the extreme keto diet with no fruit, veg or sugars, but I won't cut out caffeine. Week 2, I'll fast, have bone broth, and allow myself black coffee with sweetener if I want it. Please let me know if you've got any questions and I'll be happy to answer them. If you have any of the same ailments and you really don't want to fast, let me know if you want me to make a video on which medications and supplements I found beneficial. Good luck.